free to reach out to Jenni. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jenni.
Awesome. Thanks, John. Okay, so we did this last year at our first annual Design Summit, the Future of Architecture panel, where I got 3 architects together and really picked their brain on what's next. What should we be doing? What should we be thinking about? What are you just starting to see being designed? And we had such fun last year, and then with the market as it's being, I wanted to bring it back with a whole new set of architects and really open up that question on, okay, now that the market's softening, what should we be thinking about? How should we be proceeding? Like, what are the new trends? So I have a great panel with me. I'm really excited to do this again this year. Without further ado, I will let Paul, y'all can see them on the sign, so I won't go through introducing everybody. But without further ado, I'll let Paul Brady start.
Thank you. My name is Paul Brady, principal with Godden Sudik Architects. I'm the young millennial from Denver with the beard and, you know, the dogs and the kid. So, Godden Sudik Architects specializes in housing, but we work on all types: single family, multifamily, custom. Reason I mention that is we see trends in each of those different segments differently. I lead the multifamily at our office, and so I'm going to focus generally on trends I'm seeing in multifamily that can jump different lines. Here's a good example of not only multifamily, but hospitality. You know, somebody mentioned retail as the spot to look, but we look to hospitality as well. Hospitality is focused on lifestyle, you know, these moments, etc. Here's how one of those hospitality moments influenced a spa bath option in a single family plan of ours. In multifamily for rent, project on the left, we're seeing the evolution of fitness. It's not just ellipticals lined up anymore. It's these multi-function spaces. You have a screen on the wall. You can go touch it. You know, Jillian Michaels pops up, and you do your Taebo. The example on the left has a multi-slide. It opens up to a grass space. You can do yoga outside. It's really flexible. And so some of those trends have been put into a rec center for a single family and multifamily for sale community. We have an indoor-outdoor rec facility and also a dining component. Windows, multifamily, you're seeing bigger windows, corner glass. You know, you're just constrained with your frontage in those projects, and so you want to maximize it. Middle example is a single family example of how that can really make a space feel large. And transoms, we're seeing those come back. Pantries and the kitchen. In multifamily, we don't do framed-in pantries very frequently. They're just space hogs. We're doing cabinet units. When paired with the other units in the kitchen there, it just feels bigger. And so it gives you flexibility. The left one is an example where you can do an L-shaped kitchen. Those are only 12-inch deep full-height pantry cabinets. Also in the kitchen, the islands. You're not seeing separate dining spaces in multifamily spaces. These homes shrink. And so the island is where you eat. That sink is getting off the island because you don't want to be splashed. Or the island is going away and it's just an eat-in kitchen. In the bathroom, storage is king. You know, as your plans get smaller, don't skimp on the storage. You almost need it more. Lived in a 700 square foot condo for several years. You need it. The example on the left is an easy way to get it in there. You don't need a door. You know, you can roll your towels neatly. The one on the right is a shower. It's just a it's a cleaner insert with a integrated bench. We're seeing features like that in single family. In general, we're seeing product downsizing. This is a snippet from a project that I've been working on the last few weeks. Just look at those unit sizes. They're getting smaller, and you're also integrating technologies like modular housing. I've highlighted one of the modules in this. It's 74 feet deep, 12 and a half feet wide. We're also seeing a lot of tall to get small 3-story product in Denver. Just a hint on that, this product we've built at 2 different widths, 20 and 22. It's actually cheaper at 22 feet wide frame dimension instead of 20 because of the shear design. We avoid steel or concrete. The one in the middle is some concrete that we do on these infill locations where you just don't have that extra real estate to get wider. Townhomes are another product solution we're seeing a ton of in our office right now. And one of the first questions is, do we go 2 or 3 stories? Some quick takeaways on that. With 3 stories, you obviously get more density, but they're more expensive. You know, you have those shear constraints. It's a little counterproductive. You would think it's same foundation, same roof, or less, really. But in our market, we see that there's a price premium on that. So just make sure the area you're putting in has that price ceiling. Also with townhomes, make sure you have an outdoor space. All the design solutions you just saw, that was a really important feature. It can be a rooftop deck, it can be an elevated patio, or even just an enlarged patio at the grade. Another feature we're seeing in townhome design in our market is staggers and breaking your elevation to create fee simple exterior cladding. We have a construction defect issue in Colorado, but I think it's a pretty good way to kind of break that aesthetic. We're hearing some feedback from millennials and stuff that if they're moving from a big apartment, they want to, you know, have some self-identity to their unit. And so breaking the elevation helps accomplish that. As your spaces get smaller, please revisit your furniture standards. The one on the right, from Roman board, not Roman board, is a pretty contemporary option for a much smaller space, but that's still very appealing. With documentation, we're seeing how we can go from concept to reality change. This is a screenshot of a PDF that we create for a client that has layers built in, and those layers, the salespeople can go and turn on and off the options. And so instead of a 32-page master set, they can quickly create a 12-page site-specific set, and so it's easier for them in the field. We're also seeing a lot of our clients go to the MyTech Sapphire build software, just looking to really speed the process. The garage is changing. Here's 2 examples from our office of how that's changing. The one on the left is an end unit in a townhome, and that outdoor space can either be a carport, or it can be where you have a barbecue, etc. Finally, solar. We're seeing solar influence our design, and it's kind of crazy. You know, when I started this, I was like, oh yeah, we put solar panels on the roof, no big deal. Well, we work with Thrive, and they put a lot of solar panels on their roof. The one on the right is a net zero home that we did together. And you look at it, and you're like, well, there's no solar panels in that image. Where are they? Well, when you design for production communities, you have to predetermine all the different orientations, if it's facing north, south, east, or west. And so you have to do these studies on your roof plan to make sure they're relatively even so that you can get those solar panels in each direction. And then you have to fine-tune it. Maybe that roof plan isn't a 512, maybe it's a 612 to change that valley line so that you can get enough panels in there. But finally, we're seeing a blend of, you know, some of these things like solar and the trends with simplicity and more modern forms converge, and it helps. When you have these really complex roof forms, they get cut up and you can't get all those panels on. And so this is an example of a simple aesthetic blended with those panels that works really well. So.
Well, and Paul, very much the gabled modern that Renee was just talking about, actually. And next, we'll hear from David Copenhaver from BSB.
Thank you very much. New paradigms for attainable housing. You know, design for attainability at any price point. Attainable is appealing to everyone, not just first-time buyers. So we're going to talk about transitional, attached, and ADU, narrow lot, and new luxury. This first one is transitional housing. It was for Joppa Cottage Homes out of Des Moines, Iowa. We're trying to solve the homeless problem in the area. This home is 384 square feet, 1 bedroom, 1 bath, a common area with a galley kitchen that we've been hearing about. The challenges that we had in this was zoning. The minimum lot size that the city would require was 6,000 square feet. We were grandfathered in at 5852 because of where this lot was located. We were hoping to get 3 to 4 homes on this lot. We got 1. But after this home was built, the city is totally on board, so they're going to help us find other locations so we continue this program. There is a gentleman that was living in his car, and Joppa had found him and moved him in. He is employed by Joppa now, and he is able to cover this rent at $550 a month. You can see the inside feels very nice, a little bit of vault ceiling in the family room, but I think very clean lines, so transitional housing. From there, we're going 2 for 1. This is in Texas, so this is 2 homes on 1 lot. This is the rentable house, detached, usually behind the main home. You have different solutions on how to get to the back home. You might have a corner lot, you come in from the side, or an interior lot, you're going to have to swing around the side. As far as the sizes of these homes, residence 1 is around 2,200 square foot. It is a 3-bedroom, very open, 1 car, parking space out in front. The home in the back, the maximum that we could go to was 1,100 square feet. It is 2 bedrooms. Again, the concept is being very open. This isn't kind of a tear-down neighborhood, so the elevations are maintaining kind of the integrity of what's already there and at a certain price point. From there, you kind of start going into 22-foot wide townhomes. As far as this elevation goes, it's very modern, but what we did is we kept the roof behind it very simple. This is mostly parapet walls that you're seeing. And we also use just common materials to the builder to keep costs down. Very open plans, but 22-foot wide, and rear load helps with the density and starts to become more attainable. Same concept with the 24. You're going to kind of work the same way as far as density there. Or you end up going 3 to 4 stories. We hear Paul talking about as they get into more urban settings and you get into more high density, the land costs go up. You have to start looking at the 3rd and 4th stories. Now, when you go into 4 stories, you got to work with IBC versus IRC, so you want to make sure that you're looking at all the code and the requirements. And we did jog the building policy, how we did that. So, so it does set that back. From there, then you start becoming detached, and you're 21-foot wide, rear load, garage, side yard, very open plan. What I like, obviously, about the rear load garage is your elevations can take on any character. So whatever market you're trying to reach, whoever your buyer is that you're trying to reach, you have a lot more room to be playful, and you don't have to just worry about that garage. So this is, I think, a very solid solution. So small versus tall. So this is a project where it's all 1 car, so the high density. We tried doing a no-car solution, but the focus group shot us down on that, so we're going to go back and at least do a 1 car. This is in an existing community, and there's a very good school district, so we're trying to draw the single dad, the single mom, the parent, a couple that are going to have kids into this neighborhood. Price point hopefully is going to be around the 175, 180. So this is definitely a small to tall versus tall. Again, another way to handle that is a cluster configuration. What I like about clusters, you can kind of create a community within a community. We definitely played on the farmhouse kind of look, the open plans. You can kind of theme each cluster if you want. It's just another way to get your density up and becomes very attainable, again, depending on if it's a move up. You know, I do like the word tribe because when you always look at our thing that we're talking about, first time move up in families, you have such a huge group. It's more of a tribe of who want to be together versus just a specific buyer, if you will. This is a 35-foot wide product in Texas. Lots are definitely becoming smaller, so you start working with, is a 35 the right dimension, 30 foot, we do 25 feet. But this is a 35-foot wide home. This is done on a condo regime, so setbacks you get to be playful. But you do have the garage, a little bit modern architecture. Very open inside, not a lot of trim work, but very open, a lot of windows. Again, very attainable for this young professional. This is in a kind of closer to downtown in Austin. You know, not everyone's trying to go totally small, maximize, you know, lot potential. So even at certain price points, we still have the detached garages in the back. Maybe the lots are getting narrower, but the depths aren't getting shorter. So you still want to maintain livability for this buyer. You still have the large yards, you got the garage, the portico share, outdoor living up front, because maybe you've lost some of that space to the side. Very transitional elevation. And this again, this is a 3-story product in Shops of Legacy West up in Dallas. This is a very popular area. These homes are separated by 3 feet up to maybe 4 or 5 feet. This is attainable for anyone who wants to live in the urban setting, walkable to restaurants. You know, we talked about that first transitional home at $550 a month. This is attainable for some other people, but this starts at $800,000 and goes to $1.3 million. But you're at 3,400 square foot. And this was really kind of targeted because Toyota moved their corporate office like right around the corner from here in Dallas and Plano area. So this was kind of marketed a little bit towards that buyer. So new paradigm, designing for attainability at any price. I think we have to look at it. I think in our discussions yesterday in panels, we always like, where were we building? California, Denver, Florida. So, you know, where are we going and what is attainable in that market? So I think we have to think about that. So you got transitional, attached, an ADU, narrow lot, and new luxury.
And without further ado, Bill Hezmalhalch.
Thank you, Jenny. So I'm going to share some thoughts about some new patterns of design, and obviously we've been hearing lots about being more progressive and going smaller, and attainability is key. But I think this all has to be responsive to the new buyer profiles and the markets that are emerging. So I'm going to start on the large size. I'm going to talk about master planning a little bit. And so a lot of our emphasis right now is trying to take master plan communities and kind of depart a little bit from the older types of patterns where you have the tried and true large parcelized pieces of property that are ideal for builders to come in and do their unit counts. But as we're moving forward, we're trying to break down the scale of these. We're trying to go down into a much finer grain where you can actually take more clues from the site plan. You can take product that is now designed specifically for its location on the site, whether it's interfacing with your main loop streets, or it orientates to paseos, or it's an interior product. But all those types of design influences will affect the product. And so as you merge those products together, you get a new dynamic of a new experience, and you get multiple price points coming together in a much more integrated community. So here's a little example of a product that the image on the left, this is a townhome and a detached single-family home product in an existing infill location with an existing retail that has not been doing very well. And so that's one of our solutions that we have right now that's being processed. But I wanted to look at that and see, okay, how can we kind of break some paradigms and shift into integrating the product together in kind of a different palette. So now we've introduced products that work together with each other. We've introduced a product that interfaces now with the parking, with the commercial retail area. We've introduced the single families working inside the spaces around courtyards and green spaces. We've introduced a rec building that's attached to the attached building. So the net thing is we actually picked up units, we actually decreased the amount of circulation in the space, and we think created much more energetic and community with more vitality. This is a project that's up in the Bay Area, Northern California, East Bay. It's in a suburban city of Dublin. And this is just over 1,700 homes. It's just shy of 15 units per acre. And so this is a joint venture between Brookfield and Cal Atlantic and Lennar. And the idea was to be able to attract the buyers from the Bay Area and create more modern contemporary architectural forms, to create some new patterns of architecture. This is an alley-loaded product. Fairly large square footages, the price well over $1 million. We have another product that is front-loaded, and this is kind of interesting because we started to do some little interplays with the garages. It's a small lot. This particular plan has a side entry, so it's four-sided architecture. That was one of the major design principles of the project. And then another project, this is pushing up in scale. This is 3 and 4 stories, and this is a fairly broad range of square footage. And what's unique about this is it offers different product for different segmented markets within the building type itself. It's a U-court, motor court, gets approximately 20 units per acre. It has a large penthouse 2-story unit which has dual masters and a separate multi-generational suite. So, you know, architecture, we've talked about that here a lot. It's definitely getting more progressive, more contemporary. There's still lots of solutions where we're blending in familiar, traditional with contemporary. There's the farmhouse agrarium that we've heard a lot about, where you're taking that style and making a more progressive interpretation. And then the bottom image really starts to kind of speak to what's happening in today's market, especially in the California area, pulling down costs. You want something new and fresh, but you can't apply all the different materials, so you have to rely on less materials, more color blocking, simple forms, and create more simplicity in the architecture. So here's a project. I mean, Adrian spoke yesterday about starting out with over-designing, which, you know, that, again, that depends on the client. This particular client said, let's go for it. Let's completely explore some new ideas. We want to be very contemporary. Let's look at the garages. We're not afraid to pull down the garages. And so this project's been well in the design, but I hate to say it, it is being value engineered, is adjusting and becoming more attainable. We spoke a lot about garages, and you know, we're spending a lot of time with garages, downsizing them. We're doing a lot more one-car garages. We're repurposing the space so the space can flow into other different types of uses. And we see that emerging as we're developing new patterns of architecture. This is a 18 unit per acre detached project where we push the height up to 3 stories. It can be done in 2 stories. But it starts to explore a different way of doing some cluster housing where you're starting to introduce some 1-car garages and 2-car garages. We're detaching the garages to not have them all attached, and that allows us to create some central open space, which is typically not found in a cluster environment. And so this is kind of a above ground view looking down into how the kind of the module works. It works very well in grid-like street sections, and provide some nice living environments where you can create, again, more connectivity and enhance the experience between the users. Everybody gets a yard, everybody gets decks, lots of open space. So going smaller. So we're finding ourselves downsizing. We're going down in height. We're going 4 stories to 3 stories to 2 stories. In the case of this is a Liberty series for D.R. Horton, and we're just above 800 square feet. So we have 1 stories and 2 stories. And optional 1-car garages and 2-car garages. And what's interesting about this is this particular product can be moved around the different site plotting type techniques. It can be loaded front from a conventional standpoint. It can be loaded from the rear in an alley, or it can be organized in a cluster or a stub alley. So micro units, definitely going smaller and smaller. The one on the far right there is just a little over 200 square feet. It does not have a parking space. The city demanded this. They wanted this. So we're doing a lot of these type of micro units. It helps us. We call them density getters also. We can boost densities up, meet lower price points, and provide an alternative living situation. ADU units, here's another example of a concept of providing an opportunity to have a second living environment within the existing living environment. We have separate entries. We have a flat over the garage, and then we have the living space that's loaded with its own private yard. This is just a little over 1,300 square feet, and these are becoming more and more mainstream, especially in California, where we're finding ways to increase density, finding ways to appeal to lower price points and to meet newer demands and new buyer profiles. We talked a lot about attainable housing. This is one of my favorite projects in the Central Valley. A client came to us and said, we want to be the lowest price point in the Central Valley. We want to be able to develop a high-density, single-family detached product. So this is right around 15 units per acre. It does not have any driveways. It has a reciprocal easement in the rear. They're centered plotted, so they're familiar. It's around 1,200 square feet to 1,500 square feet. It's been the fastest-selling affordable project in the Central Valley. We're on our 5th version. So like a lot of our clients now, they're going, where do we go next? So our thought is let's go to another product. Let's pick up another unit or 2 an acre. Let's slightly reduce the square footage down. Let's go to a little more progressive architectural style. Let's address this buyer that's coming out of an apartment. Let's have universal roof lines that work very well with the solar situations. And so this is one of the products in a series of plans that provides what we call a 1-yard living space. So it has a 1-car plus a compact. It does have a driveway apron, so you can provide extra parking for a small compact. and it has one front entry yard. We're pulling from the front fence to extend the architecture forward, and then the spaces itself are open spaces, very simple, very minimalist, trying to really reach a new price point. And here's just the elevation. You can see how kind of the low wall there helps to kind of express the architecture and kind of provide a nice horizontal line. We do have some penetration through that because we want to be able to engage the yard with the front space, and then again create more contemporary architectural palette. So minimalism, this is kind of the concept of taking a box. And you can do this in single family homes, you can do it in multifamily homes like this, but the idea is to create, in this case, a high density, mid-20s plotting attached product, which is virtually a box. The lower level is just a 2-car garage, and at the end we have a 1-car, which is our density getter. You have an entry, direct access, and a stair going up, and as you go up to each of the levels, the idea is to actually take out as many walls as you can, create just virtually a shell. And in some cases we're taking out closets now, we're taking doors out, and so you're just creating partitions to separate the spaces. So our thought is this will appeal to more of the millennial buyers, the more contemporary buyers, the more minimalist, the simplicity and all that kind of works together to get to a lower price point. So it is a box, but you can dress up a box and do some fun things with the exterior elevations and create individual identities to each of the different units. So it does work, and it does achieve some good densities. Shared housing, co-housing, and that's kind of an interesting thing that's starting to happen, and it's gaining traction pretty quickly. This is in a single family situation where you've got split garages, you have a combined center hall, staircase, you come into the house, you have your own private, semi-private area that you can seclude to, of your own kitchenette, your living area, and then you come together in a central dining room. You come upstairs, you have bedroom zones for each of the cohabitants or the shared housing. You have a central library loft type function in the center of the plan. And you do have a yard and fairly high density and pretty good square footages. So taking that same type of concept and going into an attached vernacular, so here's kind of an elevation street scene of where you can take and create this centralized entry area, which you have your living area, your dining area, your kitchen. You have 6 parking spaces that all have direct access into the foyer, into that central area, and then you can spin off to your different units where they can be 1 and 2 bedrooms. You have your own little living space, so you can kind of cocoon there. And then as you go up to the second level, you have a kind of a combined fitness center, or you have kind of a workshop area for your at-home business and that type of thing. And then you go up to the top level here, and this particular person does not have a car and has just a 1-bedroom unit, and then there's a rooftop community deck. So this concept of shared housing is getting to be quite a bit more involved in lots of our different types of projects. I just read something that came out of the LA Times. They said that there's a New York firm that is investing $100 million into the LA market for this co-housing, shared housing program. So there's lots of interesting groups that are out there doing this, and so I think that's going to be a real interesting concept to get your price down. You can do it for sale, you can do it for rent, you can do it for student housing, you can do it for age qualified. There's lots of different uses to do that. And so then finally, we're exploring the opportunities to kind of co-partner with a company called Blockable, which is getting more into the manufactured housing of products. So we came to them on a project in Palo Alto, which was a trailer park that's being condemned and taken over by the city, by eminent domain. And so now the idea is that you have to move people out and move them back in. So we need something fast and quick. So this group is out of Seattle, and they build 2 modules. There's a steel frame construction. It's not wood. And, whoops, stopped. But anyway, they're active in the for sale market and also in the rental market. And so they build it in their factory, they ship it out, and then they have their own task force that work on the field and can treat and finalize the product. So that's pretty exciting too. So we're spending more time with alternative methods of construction, and modular is coming fast. We talked a lot about componentized framing and all that, and so that's something that we're trying to take advantage of right now. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you all. So as you heard, and not so surprisingly, a lot of attainable solutions and talk of attainability in the future of housing or future of architecture panel. But it was interesting to see each person's solution and just how they thought about it. You know, redefining or great. You know, if you're going to go small, what are some really nice tips and tricks and things to not forget about? And looking at different elevation styles or how you're defining the different homes in the front elevation. And where we get our inspiration. And a couple things I wanted to ask you guys questions before we open it up to the floor. But on ADUs, I know we talked about it when Dave was up here earlier. I know we heard Dave's comments on the California market, but are you guys seeing any of that in your markets? I know, Bill, you're in California still, but.
Well, as I showed you, I showed a detached project there, and that was done in Austin. It's I was surprised we got to do it when we were working with the builder, but it was pretty exciting. It was totally detached, and the thing is, that cannot be short term. That could not be Airbnb, and that was a stipulation within the criteria. So it's a long-term rental. So it's really going to be extended family or totally renting it out to maybe a college, you know, somebody in college, you know. But the main residence was 3 bedrooms because that's a primary buyer. And so you do have that second, you know, the second home.
Was it literally just 2 homes, or was it?
It's literally 2 homes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
In Denver, we're seeing a really big interest in it. Denver even rewrote their zoning code with a lot more provisions for it, but a lot of neighborhoods have opted out. There's just not that acceptance yet for it. And then I also think another component to this is the financing side. The rental's great, but you need the equity to buy the house first. Mm-hmm. And so if there's a way to kind of pull those 2 apart and get 2 different mortgages or something, it would really open up a lot more buyers, you know, to kind of saddle that millennial with that initial purchase. You know, we just don't have the cash.
I know we do ADUs in my neighborhood, but mine's about 20 years old, so it's interesting to see. But we're sort of kind of a niche-y neighborhood. And then co-housing. Are you actually working on projects, Bill, that are going live into market?
No, we are.
Very cool. I know Grace had talked about it last year.
Well,
So.
we have a particular client that's interested in diversifying because they're having a difficult time finding land in the Northern California area, and so they're looking for opportunities to do something in kind of the student housing type area, and then the student housing kind of starts it. So they're going to be looking for creating new and also adaptive reuse, and then from there that kind of triggers the opportunity to kind of do that into the rental situation, so you can get lower price points because you're lowering your build cost, you're lowering your fixture counts, you're sharing things, so the cost is coming down. So they want to be able to hit a new rental market by doing that also too. And so then the next thing from that will be, you know, co-housing from a sales standpoint, which you know, we're already involved in that also.
Very cool. And before we wrap it up, we wanted to open it up to see if you guys had anything. I know we've been kind of a quiet crowd the last couple days, so if we have any questions, we can open it up to the group. Susan?
I know in some other countries, they're now looking at all this empty retail space.
Oh.
Saying if it's a big box that went out of business, 8,000 stores went out last year, more going out this year, or if it's a mall that's emptying, they're really starting to build co-housing in that. Is that something you guys are exploring, or has anybody talked to you about that?
Well, as I mentioned, that was our client in the Bay Area. They're actually looking at corporate office buildings that are close and adjacent to junior colleges and colleges for that particular purpose. So they want to be within a half-mile distance from the college, and so they're investigating that right now. And we're just starting studies to do space planning for those types of adaptive reuses.
Yeah, we're starting to look at it more because we have a student housing part of our company out of Charlotte, and so a lot of their off-site student housing really already kind of works in that fashion. So we're starting to look at that and how we can apply it more to like for sale or resale.
So I had a question, Jenny.
Yeah.
So you guys have shared with us how your business is changing from a product standpoint. How is the architecture business, the production builder architecture business, going to change over the next 10 years? How do you see that evolving or getting disrupted or morphing?
That's a huge question. I'll tell you, after yesterday, I was talking to a couple of my buddies here, and I went, oh, wow, maybe I should retire. But it's an exciting time, because I think it's going to change. I think how we look at things, how we market, how we do model homes, how we do 3D, I mean, everything, and what we offer from design to, what the homes really look like, what options are there, is it more tech versus other rooms? This could really be changing. I think if we really dove into this 100% from what we learned over the last 2 days, we could really be changing housing quickly. And we all know housing takes about 20 years to turn.
Another layer to that is just how we function on a day-to-day basis. We've talked a lot about removing friction from a process, and I think we're part of that friction, and we're being challenged a lot to revisit how we go from concept to CDs. And so we're being forced to work with lumber yards or structural engineers or all these different builder teams, et cetera, to not just go into our office for several months and create CDs or whatever, but for it to be a lot more collaborative and then be quicker and cheaper to get to the finish line.
I think quicker and cheaper is definitely a key. How can we get them in and out the door? I think that would be great.
Yeah, I agree. I think the speed is just something that we've seen really change. Hopefully we're getting a little bit smarter and we can draw from a lot more inspirations. But I think the interface between what we do, especially from the digital standpoint of being able to have that transfer to some of these manufactured type housings and some of these pre-cut lumber type things, I think there's going to be a lot of interface between the builder, a lot tighter interface between that type of stuff, and it probably is going to be quicker, faster, more design build, and just different ways of doing business.
Well, and Paul, you were talking about Sapphire. Is that the one that Clayton uses that connects? And I think software is going to change a lot of things too, and connect things more to the endpoint and supplies ordered and things like that. And then, but I saw a question over here.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. 2 quick questions on the MyTech Sapphire. So just from a production standpoint, how much quicker can you generate, an idea to construction drawings would be my first question. Second one was just the images you have up there. Any kind of new materials on the outside of homes that's, from a production perspective can be applied and, create the kind of interest that you showed us here this morning?
First with the MyTech, being a future trend, we're not totally into it yet. We have several projects going that route, but I can't tell you from start to finish fully on it. What I do know is we're not necessarily doing the final production drawings ourselves. We're doing more concept stuff, and then we hand it off to the structural engineer team or the lumberyard team, and then they really create the working drawings. And it's not floor plan based as much. It's, hey, these are all the studs, et cetera, and it spits out shop drawings. The other one.
I would say on a new product, right now, to be honest, I think we're still maintaining with the same product, whatever regional, whatever's handy, regional is still on the attainability. A few years ago, probably not even that long ago, we've heard some presentations about homes that you can change, whatever siding they're using, you could change the color of your home, right? If you want it blue one day, green one day, you can change it based on the material, or at least a part of the home. There's other materials out there. I just haven't seen it or had the opportunity really to bring it forward.
I think interactive architectures is really interesting because everybody wants to see it now and stuff, and so there's obviously new techniques of illustrating the architectural concept. I think, we talked a little bit about the interface with some of these new types of disruptors that are coming in, such as these modular and manufactured housing, and so we find ourselves in kind of new territory now. We're designing them, we're actually detailing them, and we're working with codes and ADA situations and things like that, but they have their in-house architects, they have their in-house structurals, they have all this, so there's like this new collaborative, and we're all trying to get to the finish line, so I don't think it's been quite worked out yet, so it's going to be something we're going to have to work together and solve.
Then unfortunately, my countdown is less than 10 seconds, so we need to wrap it up. So thank you, gentlemen, for great insight.
We're still waiting for the ladder, right? It's here? Okay, thank you.